Okay, welcome everybody. Thank you, Amanda, for the introduction. Yes, I have a lot of military experience as a military service member, but I also have a lot of experience as a spouse as well. So I just wanted to let you know that this series is something that's close to my heart, and I like to spread the information around. So tonight we're going to be covering all of these things: stages and definitions, signs and symptoms, and particularly give you some tracking tools and resources that you can walk away with. And then coming up, we'll be doing some more in this series, and then we'll add to this. So right now I'm going to try to stick to just this, but if you have other questions, by all means, we can discuss more at the end. So this is a transition, and I really try to emphasize this every time I talk about it, that it's like this cartoon. Many women fear the word menopause, so I prefer to call it puberty part 2, because it is a transition and you've already survived puberty. Some of you may have already gone through pregnancy, and that's also a transition. So you have to keep in mind that menopause is something that we're all women are destined to go through, but the way that we go through it is going to be different. And the way that we go through it is just like change. It's a change. And it's a change that we want to prepare you for, or I want to prepare you for at the very least. But it's like that movement from a caterpillar to a butterfly. And you will be the wonderful butterfly when you come out the end. So this little chart right here, it covers the stages of the transition. And this one comes from a big research study that they did involving numerous women over a number of years. It's the Stages of Reproductive Aging workshop. And this is a simplified version for our discussion. So like I was saying, transition. We've already been through prepubescence going into puberty. And we've also traveled through adolescence and adulthood. So you get into your reproductive years, your estrogen and your progesterone and other things, hormones are going on inside your body, they fluctuate. You may have pregnancy occur. Again, another fluctuation. All throughout this time, there's different periods, and the chart is not indicative of the time. So I kind of just want to point out, as you're going through perimenopause, menopause to postmenopause, that's actually quite a significant amount of time within your lifespan that you're going to be going through this. But keep in mind that menopause itself, for the medical scientific definition, menopause is only 1 year without a period. So 1 year that you're not menstruating, then you've technically done menopause. So you can see how you're not actually going to know until you're done. Chances are most of the questions that you're going to be posing to me are from your perimenopause phase. But when you go to doctors or you hear things, very often we talk about just menopause. So I'm going to try to stick to menopause transition so that we know that we're talking about that whole period of time: perimenopause, menopause, and postmenopause. So it's menopause transition. Now, when you're going through it, again, I'm just emphasizing how this whole production works. Okay, so you get to puberty. Now, nobody prepares you for puberty. You just sort of go through it. You hop on that roller coaster, and then these hormones start to kick in. And it's the estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone that are going to be fluctuating up and down on that roller coaster that are going to keep all these silly symptoms. And anyone who's had a teenager in the house understands that you're going to go through ups and downs all the time, and your hormones fluctuate. And with those fluctuations, you get different signs and symptoms. As you go through this, you might incur pregnancy. So you could get pregnant in there, and that's, again, another transition. And again, these same hormones are the ones that are going up and down. Middle age, when your perimenopause hits, between 35 and 50 years. So it depends on the person. And then menopause is that one little arrow, that red arrow that's there. That's that 1 year that you don't have a period. And then the rest of your life is your postmenopause life. And that's often about a third of your lifetime. So you can see how when we process through this, you want to do it as best you can, because there's going to be a lot of years in postmenopause that we want to enjoy. So how do you know where you are, and why do you care? Like, does it really matter? So I've heard a lot of things over the years, and I think that's what motivates me to do this. So I've heard lots of women say, oh, I'm too young. I couldn't be going through that yet. I don't have to think about that until I get there. You know, my mother went through it. I'll just go through it the way she did, and I'll be fine. I can't do anything about it anyway. I'll just have to suffer with it. And I hear these things, and I think these are women that don't know what their choices are. And that's fine. If you want to do whatever, if you want to just get through it and not take anything or not do anything special, that's okay. That's your choice. But you don't have to suffer. And I guess that's where I really feel for women who don't know what their options are. So this is where I want to provide you with some choices that you can make. So I'm telling you, if you're a woman, you're going to be going through your whole menopause transition. So if you have to do it, wouldn't it be better if I told you had to do a tightrope walk to train you for it, to take a blindfold off you, to make sure that you're able to do it first without any much of a fall, that you can do it before you actually have to really do it. So we don't get prepared for a lot of things in our lives. And as women, we tend to get pushed on the back burner with regards to scientific research. So menopause is one thing that we often push aside because it doesn't happen until later. If you'll notice, pregnancy, we prepare women for pregnancy. We have Lamaze classes, you learn how to breathe. We even have classes for the men, so the men can learn how to deal with the woman who's pregnant and deal with the new baby and what comes after. But we don't have it for menopause. And yet, really, you're pregnant for 9 months, then you have a baby, and that's a whole different thing. But you don't have a period like forever. So there's a big change there. These are the signs and symptoms. I'm not going to go through all of this with you, but what I want you to make note of is that this is just a short list. This is a short list of all the things that you can go through. And I'm betting that if you're in the perimenopause phase, you can probably tick off a few of those right now and say, yeah, I think I'm having that. I think I'm having that. The thing is, if you look at these signs and symptoms and you take them out of this context, they can also be signs and symptoms for other diseases. So as a nurse, I also want you to keep in mind that part of the reason for education and figuring out if you are in menopause or if you're not in menopause, perimenopausal phase, your whole menopausal transition, is so that you can make the choice, go into the doctor, find out if there's something else going on or if that is what's going on. And then from there, you can make choices. So vasomotor symptoms are the cardinal symptoms of what you're going to go through, because that's when your estrogen starts to go down, progesterone up, and it dips. It goes off and on all the time. So 60 to 80% of women are going through these changes. It's a big span, but it depends on the study that you read with regards to how many people are actually going through this. But what happens is the estrogen fluctuates and it changes your temperature regulator in your body. Now, this can start before you even have any problems with your periods at all. But if you're starting to notice any fluctuations in temperature, it might be your cue to say, oh, okay, maybe something's happening. Your vasomotor center affects your brain that's covering your pressure control. So inside your vessels, vasodilation and vasoconstriction, that center is being controlled with a lot of hormones, and one of them is estrogen. So when your estrogen starts to fluctuate, you might have high blood pressure, you might have low blood pressure. Those are the kind of things that you might end up seeing. And your symptoms, now here I've said 7.4 years, and that's just according to one study. But yeah, it can be up to 10 to 15 years. And your hot flashes, which are, like I said, that's the main cardinal sign. It's the vasomotor symptoms. They can go on well after you've hit that menopause 1 year mark. So you haven't had a period for 1 year. After that, you can still have your hot flashes, and that's not fun. So although in this session, we're not going to talk about any particular therapies, I am just going to emphasize here that vasomotor symptoms are the number one symptom of perimenopause and menopause and postmenopause. So your whole menopausal transition, vasomotor symptoms are number one that we usually try to take care of. And hormone therapy is your gold standard. It's the number one thing that you can use in order to help you decrease those or control them. So I won't harp on it. There'll be another whole series in here. I think it's part 3. We talk about hormone therapy. Hormones, like I said, are the culprit for all of these changes. So this is just to give you an idea. If you have less estrogen, you're going to have fewer periods. And that's probably where you're going to be at first in your perimenopause phase. And you're going to get hot flashes, wake up in the night sweats, that kind of thing. And when you're waking up in the night because of night sweats, then you're going to have problems with sleep. So sleep disturbances. Anyway, if you look at all the different things they can do, these hormones have a significant amount of say in how you experience your day-to-day life. So getting a grip on them one way or the other, however you do that, whatever your choice is, it's up to you. And you want to take care of the things that are most important to you. So the first thing I tell women to do is start tracking. So in this series, we're talking now about where you start. So what I'm going to tell you is the very, very most important thing as we go through this. We'll talk about your strategy and the choices that you're going to make. Till the end, in part 4, we're going to talk about when you actually sit in front of your healthcare provider or you make that contact with the healthcare provider, what kind of things you can tell them and what kind of things you can bring to them. These are apps that are available on your phone. Now, I will say they're all iOS, so I don't have great choices for Android phones. And like I said, you're going to get a PDF of this that'll be made available to you. But I've looked at so many apps and some of them are just not worth it, really not worth it at all. But these are my favorites. I've used all 3 of these, and the 4th one is the one that I like the most and I've been the most consistent with, and that's pen and paper. So using my pen and paper, I just make little ticks in my calendar just to remind me about how often, so the frequency and the intensity. So those are the 2 biggies. And if I can, duration. So some of these apps want you to actually time your hot flash. Now, I don't know, maybe other people can do that, but I've not been able to time a hot flash because I'm pretty much just irritated during it. So that's the last thing on my mind. I'm trying to think about getting cool. So, but the frequency is important because you want to know, you want to be able to reflect on it in order to make your decisions. And I'm going to be giving you also what's called the Women's Health and Menopause Worksheet, which again, we're going to talk about within this series. And at the very last on part 4, this is what you're going to bring to your doctor, but it's also going to be what you build on in order to get the information you need for your doctor. So page 5 of that is specifically all the things that you can track. These are some other apps that, like I said, I've looked through them and I have information here for you so that, yeah, if maybe that's what you want. Like for instance, some people are more concerned with being able to work out still, even though they're having skipped periods and they don't know whether they should be working out or not working out. Wild AI is really good for somebody who wants to just pay attention and focus on their training, but it's not so much for tracking. And what I'm trying to kind of get through to you now is tracking becomes very important, especially at the start. Again, some more, and you can take a look through these on your own time and see if there's anything there that you like. But the first ones were the best ones, in my opinion, especially with regards to tracking. Just in case any of you are geeks with technology, Fitbit offers period tracking on some of their models, and that comes in handy if you're early on. And I often like to talk to women in their 30s, actually, because that's when things can start to happen without them even knowing it. And it's also when they can start to prepare. So I've had some good conversations with younger women who say, oh, okay, so I am going to go through that. Well, what can I do? So this is one of the things, if they're into sports, you can slap on your Fitbit, or you can put on a Garmin so that you can upload it to other programs that there are. And there's a lot of things coming out right now. So these are, Apple itself is doing a big study with a university. And I imagine it's probably going to take about 10 years before we get to see really solid results and have something concrete to be able to use. But it's coming. The more information that you can provide with any tracking, it's easier for your healthcare provider to give you support that you need, because you might be having lots of hot flashes, but you don't care. I've actually met women who go, yeah, it comes, it's over in a few seconds, it doesn't matter. But they have a really big issue with anxiety and depression. So that's what they want to target. But the healthcare provider doesn't really know that. So you have to be able to come in and talk to your healthcare provider realistically. Excuse me. And when I do this, I always get the same question. I get asked about diagnosis. It's not a disease, so we don't have to diagnose it, but it's much like pregnancy. So you want to know that it's going on, and there are choices that you can make that can involve your healthcare provider. So a diagnosis can be very pertinent in those situations. So how does it happen? Well, I'll tell you, one of the things that they do is the same thing that they would do for puberty or for pregnancy. We pretty much can ask the same questions and get the same information and find out what's going on. We don't even have to do a whole lot of tests. Your age group, the character of your periods, and any presence of signs and symptoms. So chances are, if you are like a lot of you guys, the resources that I always give out are the GK Medical Clinic numbers. But this is where it's good that with menopause, you can talk a lot about this over a phone. So you can do a telephone appointment with a healthcare provider. You can even keep some of your healthcare providers that you have from Canada and just say, hey, I'm living in wherever, I'm living in Poland now, and I want a telephone appointment with you, and book something and talk to them about this. So it's something that you can just get through question and answer. Now, there are blood tests that they can do. So the blood test that you're going to be looking at is your follicle stimulating hormone, because it kind of goes up. What happens is your ovaries are going crazy, like, oh my God, we got to get these eggs taken care of. So the follicle stimulating hormone starts to work harder. And so you'll see a spike in that. Now, the thing is, I'll tell you, as a healthcare provider, if I've never had a test with you before, how do I know that your FSH is going up? I don't. I honestly don't. I have this nice little chart that says these are the normals, but is that your normal? So this is where it's really hard for the healthcare provider to actually give you anything firm. So the test can be done, and I would say It's really great. The sooner you can go in and say, you know what, I'm preparing myself for my menopause years. So I just want to test down on my hormones right now to get a baseline. So I do encourage a lot of women to go in, and there's a lot of healthcare providers that don't like me saying it, but yeah, it's really good to have a baseline. And then I want you to keep your test. I want you to get a copy of that test and keep it with you, because your doctors change, you move. That's the reality for us. So you keep that so you always have it with you and you can show your next healthcare provider. If you want to go natural, like later on, part 2 and part 3, we're going to talk about non-hormonal and hormonal treatments that you can use. Well, non-hormonal will do the same thing. If you go to a naturopath, they will diagnose you, not with a disease, but with a transition. And they will often take swabs. So they'll do saliva tests for hormones. So they tend not to be invasive, but it's still the same thing. And I'll tell you right now, your hormones change. Your hormones change throughout the day, morning till night, and they change from day to day. So, and day to day throughout your month. So your hormones are always changing. So beware of test results and health providers who say, oh, no, you're within normal range, you're fine, you're not going through anything right now. Because they're just looking at the numbers. So it's not that they're wrong, but according to the numbers, that's what it says. Or it could be the flip side. Oh my gosh, you're going through perimenopause. And maybe you're actually not. Maybe it's just the numbers that are right for you. So at this point, what do? Educate yourself. So this is great. I'm so happy all of you are here. And yes, by all means, anything that I send you, please share it, because I find it's just a topic that we do not talk about enough. I came into my perimenopause phase and asked my sister and my mother, and they had nothing for me, because it's like nothing was ever talked about. So there's a lot of different websites that you can go to, and some of them are so good. I could sit in front of them for ages. So I'm just going to kind of go through the best ones for you, from kind of the best ones and then downward from there, so that you know what you can go to and access. And I'll give you all the links in the PDF as well. This one, menopauseandyou.ca. It's Canadian. It's supported by the Society of Obstetricians and Gynecologists of Canada. And it is in both French and English, but you just have to make sure that you go up in the corner and do the drop-down menu to get the French. They used to have it right up front, but they've changed it recently. So, but they do have it in French and all the resources as well. So I love this one. It has a lot of information. It has a lot of the links that I'm going to tell you about anyway. The Hormone Network, I'm not as keen about the Hormone Network itself, but it is a multilingual site. So not necessarily for French and English, but somebody who has another language, they have information for other languages. It's of course a US based. The menopause map is linked in their website. And the menopause map is really good because it's like a little pamphlet, but it's online. So you open it up and you kind of go, I'm getting hot flashes. So you go to hot flashes and then it pops up with, like the book opens and okay, now you can do this or this or this. And it gives you some options. And I've looked through all of those things and their options are excellent. Sometimes there's things that they don't necessarily tell you all about. And that's where you have to come with your questions and go, but what is that about? And then look into it yourself. But I love their little start the journey, and it's your journey. You pick whatever you want and you kind of go through it that way. They also have a link to the Red Hot Mamas. The Red Hot Mamas is great, except because it's a USA site, it actually has a lot of community events and support inside the USA. So they do rallies, they do all kinds of fun things, but yeah, it's limited. So if you're posted there, it's great. If not, well, they do have a lot of information and there's a lot of little videos and things. So that's kind of nice. It makes you feel like you're not the only one going through it. The Canadian Menopause Society, it's probably the first one I ever Googled ages ago. And I thought it would be wonderful because it's Canadian Menopause Society, but it's not. It's down at the bottom of my list here because it costs $150 to join per year. And trying to find the French, I didn't find it. I haven't been able to find it. So, but there is Cantonese and Mandarin and Vietnamese videos. Now they are available on YouTube. So they also have them in English and French too, though. But you can get the videos on YouTube for free, and they're very informative. They're very interesting. But the site itself, I'm not keen on. Menopause Barbie she's down here, but she's only down near the bottom because she's so eccentric. Honestly, she's got 100 and I stopped watching at 172 YouTube videos, but she has all her information is solid. The only thing that I feel is not so solid, she talks about phytogens in the diet, and that's fine. It is solid information, but what she neglects to tell you is that a lot of them have a lot of sugars in them, and a lot of vegan processed foods have a lot of sugars in them. So she really kind of looks at the good stuff in diet things, but she doesn't necessarily tell you the flip side. So, but that's diet. With all her hormones and things like that, she actually teaches, but she does it in a very eccentric way. So if you've never watched her, she could piss you off. And I'm probably not supposed to say that, but it's just because she comes off in a certain manner. But I'm telling you, everything she says is very true. It's definitely solid information. And North American Menopause Society, they have lots of links. They also control the MenoPro app, which I've also included in the apps tools, but it's not necessarily the best app going. They say that it is, but I didn't find it to be very useful, not for tracking anyway. And I'm finding that there's a lot of the apps that are trying to teach you things, but if you have a website you can go to, you usually get the information there. Or if you have one app that can teach you things, that's great. You don't have to have like 10 different apps, but you do need a good solid app to do tracking if you want to do your tracking that way. International Menopause Society. This is one that I didn't include before because they didn't really do a whole lot of things, but now they're really kicking up their game, and they're putting a lot of stuff out there. Now, for me as a professional, I have to pay $120 a year in order to get into this site. But for regular women, as a woman, I can just go in and I can get a lot of information. And it's multilingual. So it is a good site that way. I would probably go to the Canadian site, the Menopause and You one first. But because it's international, I think that it's got that information that you might need if you're in another country. So it can be helpful that way. These ones are both US based, and they're just basic information. So if you want to just start with basic stuff, both of these sites are really good sites. And if you're the kind of person who likes to go into chat rooms and talk with other people and do that kind of stuff, these are the kind of sites that you want to go to because they've got a lot of links, especially the Healthy Women one. Lots of podcasts out there. I'm not going to sit and harp on it. These ones are good, but there is more and more coming. I'm finding that they don't give you as much concrete information. These ones I've listened to and they have. The Gynae Geek, I can't remember her actual name, but she's a doctor. She's a gynecologist, and she does some excellent teachings. So I love her stuff. She doesn't just cover menopause, she covers all sorts of gynecological issues. And the Doctor's Kitchen, I find him really good with regards to any lifestyle issues. So he does whatever. And menopause is just one of many subjects that he's covered. So coming up, the big things that I want you to understand from this point, just to this point, is what menopause is, that it's the fluctuation in those hormones. You can do something, and it's your decision what you're going to do about it. And this is basically the breakdown. This is it. So you're going to ride the roller coaster. You're just going to suffer through it. But maybe you won't suffer. A lot of people don't. There's a lot of women who actually get through it pretty easily. Or you want to go non-hormonal. I want to be natural. I want to just do something that's good for my body. I don't want to put a lot of chemicals in it. So maybe that's the way you want to go. Hormone therapy, maybe you just want to get to the heart of what's bothering you the most, which is your vasomotor symptoms. And hey, I learned on this webinar that that's the most important thing that goes on. That's my big one. And maybe that's the way I want to go because it's the gold standard. Or you have a choice of doing a combo. And I want you to really keep in mind that combo, because you can start riding the roller coaster, change your mind, and go, okay, I'm going to try this now. Nothing is going to hurt if you try it. So I want you to be open-minded about all of these things that we're going to talk about. And I want you to understand that what I do is I always talk about lifestyle choices, because no matter what you choose, that is the most important thing that you're going to be doing within any of these choices. So tonight, I want you to take away the points that you need to get a map. If you're going on a big road trip, you get a map. It's simple. You got to go from point A to point B. You're going from your reproductive years to your menopause years, and you can go through the bumpy roads or you can go straight. So get a map, start to track your signs and symptoms. And this is going to help determine whether you want to go the bumpy way or the straight way. And then you can prepare your own path and sit down with a healthcare provider at some point, have a visit, and make the decisions of what you want to do. And they're going to be your partner in this, but you're going to be the one driving the car. Okay, and I'll just leave you with contact information. Primary care nurse and GK, you all have access to this, and you're all welcome to phone this number. Well, all the European people, and because you're covered by them. So you can call them at any point in time and ask for a phone interview. And as well, you can email me if you have any questions. I'm fine with that. Thank you very much for attending tonight, and we will talk to you again soon, I hope.